Hi, I'm Michael Shuel and I'm with SNN Sports. Today I'm joined by Sandy Hodge, the CEO of Scottish Football Partnership Trust. So Sandy, you were a former professional footballer before your current role. Can you tell us a little bit about your career?
Yeah, I can. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I played professional football in this country for 13 years. Started off at Motherwell and played a number of clubs: Hamilton Accies, Partick Thistle, Queen of the South, and latterly finished part-time with Alloa and Cowdenbeath. So I had a thoroughly enjoyable career, but I like to describe it as a very real career. It's not the glitz and glamour of the Premiership or the very top end of the game, but certainly one where I met a whole host of fantastic people and learned a lot about myself and the game. So very, very privileged to have had that career.
So you started off with Motherwell in the Scottish Premiership, and then unfortunately you were there for, was it professional for 1 year?
Yes.
Was it under Alex McLeish? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. I was Alex McLeish's first ever signing as a football player. Once he came as he was player manager at the time when he left Aberdeen. So somebody who I had a great amount of respect for. He was a phenomenal manager. It helped that I was a defender as well. So I actually played. I used to get some time out of school when I was 15 to play in the reserves, and back in the day when the game was very different around reserve football at that time, and we had a phenomenal reserve team, and our back three at the time was myself, Alex McLeish and Stephen Craigan. So if you can't learn from good pros like that, then you'll never learn. So I was getting out of school at 15 to go and play against Hibs at Easter Road in the reserves against John Hughes, Jim Duffy, Alec Dow, and people like that are household names in the Scottish game. So yeah, it was a great experience. But Alex McLeish was phenomenal, and he was very much a student of the game. So you could tell he was going to go further and he was going to go higher. And it was no surprise to see him at the very top level down south. One of the first things he ever told me as a football player was when you get into the dressing room of a match, always have a look at the programme, find out the referee, find out their name, and don't call them ref, call them by their name, and you'll get away with murder. And that was absolutely the case. If you treated the referee with a bit of respect and first name terms, then they would cut you some slack and a bit of leeway during the game.
So right, so respectful of referees. How would you describe yourself as a defender though against the opposition?
I would like to think, going back, obviously it's a change game now, but I was very much a ball-playing defender. I think possibly one of the areas of my game that people were frustrated about was maybe not aggressive enough for my size and stature. But when I was younger, I played wide left, and as I got older and as I turned professional, I kind of moved further back the park into left full back, left centre back of a three. So I was more of a kind of ball-playing centre back, and that was what I preferred doing rather than maybe a bit more robust.
So when you left Motherwell, what was it like going from Scottish Premiership side under Alex McLeish to Division 2 at the time, Scottish League 2?
Yeah, I made the move to Queen of the South purely because I was at a stage where I was looking for more first team football, and I wanted to make my own name in the game and start playing first team football. But I was also, even at that age, I was starting to think about what would potentially come next. So I was interested. I was a student of the game. I wanted to look at sport and exercise science. I wanted to understand a bit more. So that move to Queen of the South enabled me to do both. Enabled me to start my studies, but also play first team football. And even down at a club like Queen of the South, a fantastic club, really well run, massive club. You don't realise the size of it until you're in and amongst the bowels of Palmerston. It's a great club with great people, and playing with people like George Rowe and Kenny Dee were the managers at the time. But Stevie Mallon, who was just a phenomenal striker and played till the latter years, and Alan Preston Biscuits, who came down, didn't play a huge amount at Queen of the South because he ended up retiring with his hip injury. But players like that are very experienced players, so I learned a huge amount. And also I was very proud at that time to go on and be, and I still am to this day, the youngest ever club captain at Queen of the South at 17 years of age. So that was a lot of responsibility, and I always saw myself as a leader, and thankfully other people in the game saw me as that as well. So that was a great move. Loved my time down there.
And following Queen of the South, you went to Stranraer.
Yep.
If I was to say January 2002, the 5th of January, do you know what game I'm talking about there?
Is that the Celtic game? Is that the...
Not quite the Celtic, the Hibernian.
Oh, Hibs, yeah.
Hibs.
Yeah, playing against De La Cruz, who was an absolute flying machine. I was wide left at the time. Yeah, we drew 0-0 at Stair Park and then took them back to Easter Road. Things didn't go to plan at Easter Road, but yeah, it was a great experience.
Quite a result then, 0-0 against Hibs.
Yeah, it was, and it was a good 0-0. Sometimes against Premiership teams you can be holding on and you can be just backs against the wall, but actually we very much made a game of it and we had chances, and 0-0 was probably a fair result on the day rather than us defending for our lives.
Yeah, so we'll move on from the replay, the second leg at Easter Road.
Yeah.
Was it a fun experience playing at Easter Road though?
It was. It was a great experience. It was midweek. It was under lights, but actually it was a bit frantic getting to the game. There was a road traffic accident, so we had to get a blue light escort to Easter Road. So everything was a bit frantic and a bit last minute. But you've just got to enjoy and savour those occasions. And I was fortunate up until St Mirren opened their new stadium. I'd played in every senior ground in the country, so even just experiencing grounds like Easter Road, Tynecastle, Celtic Park, Ibrox, just great cauldrons and atmospheres to go and play football in.
You touched on the game against Celtic there, 4-1 I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell us about the players you played against in that game, the challenge they posed?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. A very high-profile game on paper, but actually, and it kind of aligns with. I often get asked about, who's the best player you've played against, or who's the best player you've played with. And when you look at that team last night with Neil Lennon, McNamara, Henrik Larsson, Chris Sutton, Ramon Varga at the back, fantastic players. But actually, it was a bit of a training game for them, so you don't actually see the best side of them. So they're maybe just off it slightly. Whereas when you're playing your bread and butter of the lower league stuff, that's when it really matters. So it was a great experience. The build up to the game, all the media coverage was excellent. And again, for the first certainly the first half, it was a decent game. Celtic kind of ran out, were the winners as you say in the end, 4-1. But it was a great day for the club just to have everybody from the town out. And clubs like Stranraer really need the local community to get behind them and supporters to come through the door in these local communities. So games like that certainly help. And when the cameras turn up for a game, it certainly makes it a bit more of an occasion.
Were there any more memorable moments of your playing career?
Lots of memorable occasions. I think probably the ground I liked best playing at was Tynecastle, just because I think everybody says it, the atmosphere and the fans are right on top of you. And when we played, and the game was live in the TV quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup, and actually in Edinburgh, Scotland and England were playing rugby as well, so the city was absolutely full, and it was an early kick-off, and we got beat 2-1 on that occasion. Craig Gordon made one of the best saves I've ever seen to stop us going to 2 each and taking the game into extra time, as it would have been at that point. But there's loads of memorable moments like that. But actually, when I look back, it's more the generic lessons learned and people you met and people you still keep in touch with, and you see how others have moved on from the game, and that's where my real memories are, probably more so off the park, and how you developed as a person than on it.
And you touched on how you went to university, you did sports and exercise science. Was it Strathclyde?
It was Paisley Uni at the time, which is now UWS.
Okay. And did you, after you left Motherwell and you had to go down the pyramid to play first team football, did you have in your mind that this wouldn't be like a career in the sense you needed to in after it?
Yeah, I was always aware of it. I always played football for the love of the game rather than necessarily it being a profession or a career. And I was fortunate for 13 years. I did make it a way of life, if you like. But I was always thinking about the next steps, and I was always interested in sport, and exercise science was what motivated me. But I also wanted to better understand the game and better understand you. I think if you were to ask people that I played with and against what they thought of me as a player, I don't think many would turn around and say he was the most technical or the most skillful, but I think what they would say is that I worked hard and I got the best out of what I could, and I looked after myself and I was fit and strong, and a lot of that was just by understanding the game and understanding the science. So it was twofold moving into university. One was to future-proof my career, and I wanted to continue in sport in some way, shape or form, but also to try and maximise and get the best out of me as an individual. And that was before sports science really took off in the country. it wasn't a thing. And actually, I laugh when I look back that I was the type of person that, back in those days you had to buy physical books to go to university, and on numerous occasions at various different clubs you would come in and books had been ripped up, or there was a pile of ashes in the middle of the changing room floor where they'd been set on fire as part of dressing room pranks and so on, because most of and I say this in a very generic term, but most of the players at that time, when you finished training at 12 or 1 o'clock, would go and play golf, or they would go to the bookies, or they would go do whatever else. But I just wanted to make better use of my time and actually go and study. And actually, when I was playing at Hampden Park, there was a time when I got banned from the gym because my performance had dropped off slightly. But because I was so involved in sport and exercise science, I would go to the gym before and after training to work on certain areas of my game. But that was, at that time, just people hadn't really caught up, and it was almost the terminology was you're overtraining, which, in my opinion, there's no such thing if you're training properly.
You mentioned the dressing room there, pranks. Were you much of a prankster, or you just got pranked on?
I just got pranked on, to be honest, most of the time, but I loved all that kind of stuff, coming in and your shoes are nailed to the floor, your clothes are stapled to the ceiling, and think back to the two characters at Partick Thistle when I was there, Ricky and Chico, just two larger-than-life characters that were always up to something, and it was great. It was good for the dressing room. You speak. The world's moved on now, and some of those pranks maybe wouldn't be quite as PC now, I guess. But it was character building, and it was good in the dressing room, and it was all taken in good jest, and it was good fun.
And of course, after your career, then move into sports science. You had roles at 2 clubs as a sports scientist.
Yep.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, really enjoyed that at Queen's Park and Partick Thistle as head of sports science, and again, since I've stopped playing, what motivates me now is the next generation. It's grassroots. It's giving people an opportunity. It's helping people, and that very much is the role of the sports scientist. Sports scientists get quite the field of sports science can get quite negative press at times, where people think that they're picking the team and they're telling managers who can play and when they can't play and so on. But actually, sports science is about the marginal gains. It's about helping people to be, that 2, 3, 4, 5% better in various different fields. So I had a thoroughly enjoyable time. David McCallum, who's now at Rangers, took me into Queen's Park, who, again, just how paths connect and paths cross. Played with David at Motherwell back in the day, and that's where that relationship started. And somebody I really respect and who's doing really well in the game, and took me in there. And then it was Jerry Britton and Scott Allison that took me to Partick Thistle, which was good as well. That was at the time of the Thistleware Academy and the establishment of the Thistleware Academy. So it was a really exciting time for the club, and players like Aidan Fitzpatrick and a lot of good young boys that came through, James Penrice and so on came through. So you can look back at those kind of times and think you played your part. Again, going back to Queen's Park with the Blair Spittles and the Lawrence Shanklins and so on that came through at that point. So it's nice to, I know people try and lay claim to developing all these players single-handedly, but it's nice to have played just a small part in that role.
So going from sports science into more administrative roles, you started with Sports Scotland. Can you tell us about your time there? Yeah,
I had a great time. It's a fantastic organisation, Sports Scotland, to work with. But what really motivated me was, as I was finishing my playing career, I didn't want to just be a one-trick pony around football and just be focused around football. So what really inspired me was, when you look at the national teams in this country, and everyone's got their own opinion, whether they think they're good, bad or indifferent. I personally think Scottish football's in good health and our national teams do very well when you consider everything. But I wanted to look at how come British cycling have got a what it takes to win model that's repeatable, Olympic cycle after Olympic cycle. How come the third best men's swimming team in the world trains in Stirling? How does that happen, and what is it that other governing bodies in other sports are doing that potentially football could learn from? So that was really what kind of sparked my interest to move into sport administration and more generic sport rather than just football. And in that 10 years at Sports Scotland, I worked with a number of governing bodies, and both in a development, governance and performance sphere, which was phenomenal. Sports like judo and Horse Scotland and Cricket Scotland and some fantastic organisations in sports.
You mentioned judo there. I believe you still have a hand in judo.
Yes, on the board of directors at judo. So again, it's another phenomenal sport that's got real potential in this country, ever growing and will continue to grow. And hopefully with the Commonwealth Games on the horizon, the home Commonwealth Games on the horizon, they can be equally as successful as Glasgow 2014, if not more so.
Have you trained yourself? Do you have any belts?
I don't actually know. When you're in meetings through in Ratho and you hear the thud and the thump of the athletes just through the wall, it's a sport I'm happy to share my expertise and assist with, but I'm not quite taken to the mat just yet.
So after Sport Scotland, you start with the Scottish Football Partnership Trust as CEO. What made you make that jump?
I guess it was wanting to make a difference, and football being my passion. It was always the plan to come back into football. I don't think there's any other better organisations and jobs and being able to support and create opportunities for people that maybe wouldn't have the opportunity any other way. You know, we've talked about my career. You can only ever have a career if somebody somewhere gives you the opportunity, and there are so many people that don't get that opportunity. So that's what really motivated me to come into this role, because actually I think I can make a difference, and I think the organisation, it does make a difference, and we can continue to make a difference. So that's what kind of motivated me to take on this role.
What are the biggest differences you feel like you've made so far in the role?
The biggest differences are creating opportunities for people to play the game, and you know our vision is very much around a Scotland that has equality, where everybody who wants to can experience the physical and mental health benefits of grassroots community football, and that in a nutshell is what we are striving to do. And we've got some great examples of, you know, where we're at Castlemilk a couple of weeks ago, opening a new facility, Castlemilk Community Sports Trust, a new purpose-built facility that had closed down. It was a Glasgow Life facility that had closed down at the start of lockdown and would have been lost to the local community. And it's, you know, as a crow flies, it's less than 2 miles from Hampden Park. And Eddie Gray, Leeds United legend, was there to cut the ribbon. And you know, that's somebody that's come up through that community. And I played with people like Darren, I forget his second name, but people that came from Castle I played with, again, only ever had the opportunity to play football because somebody was willing to give them that opportunity. So when we, you know, support, invest in a facility like that, which is purpose-built for the girls and women's game, fully inclusive, state-of-the-art, and it's now being developed by the community, for the community, that's what motivates and inspires, and thousands of people will have the benefit of that facility for years to come.
So for you personally, what's next?
What's next for me in the Scottish Football Partnership is bigger and better. We are very impactful. We support on an annual basis just over 40,000 young people that wouldn't necessarily get that chance to play grassroots community football. So we think we are punching above our weight, and we're very impactful. But I would like to push the boundaries a bit more and increase that and be able to help more people and to do more and to do better. The number one, when you speak to and you look at research, the number one barrier and blockage to grassroots community football from growing and giving everybody an opportunity is facilities and access to fit for purpose facilities. So I want us to be able to do more, and I want people to look back in years to come and think, actually, we made a very positive difference to the fabric of Scottish football.
And we will be talking about that a bit later. But thank you, Sandy, for talking to us about your career.
Thank you.